This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
Hello out there. Fantastic Sunday we have here, though very wet, but it's cool, isn't it? This is the Classic FM special program, The Discourse with Dr. Ken. I'd like to thank you for tuning in and for sitting in there and for looking forward to another fantastic episode today on The Discourse. What do we have today? Okay, I'll reveal that, I have a very, 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 very appropriate guest for the topic we are going to discuss today, which is the English Premier League and the power of money. Now, last week we had a very young female CEO here. She had done very well, not only in business, but in tech. Decided that we have to mix it up, as much as possible. But talking about sports, we have discussed the power of sports with Muyiwa Kayode some 2 months ago. And then again, I remember I had to drag in Larry Zamoje to discuss the business of sports. But people kept asking me, listen, this EPL, what does it really mean? And today I decided to say, let's deal with EPL, because research is saying that most Nigerians who follow the EPL follow it for those who win titles and those who spend money and then who scores the goals, but it's much, much bigger than that. Today we'll find out how much it is in terms of business, in terms of money, and what makes it successful or a failure kind of story for your own team. So today, after the break, I would reveal my guest, and I'm very sure you agree with me that is the right person and caliber that will be our guest today on Discourse as we discuss the English Premier League and the power of money.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
My guest today is Deji Omotoyinbo. I'll give you a quick profile of Deji Omotoyinbo. He's a graduate of biochemistry from the university. In fact, I specifically emphasize prestigious University of Ibadan from Southwest Nigeria. Deji Omotoyinbo is co-founder of Sports Vision Limited, and Sports Vision Limited, like is a leading company in sports marketing and consultancy, media communications and advisory. Deji Omotoyinbo has over 3 decades of solid experience in sportscasting and is a creative force behind some of the best sports content in the Nigerian media space. He's an innovative leader in the sports area of resource and capacity building. He's an author and a faculty member of Sports Business Merit Program for sports professionals in conjunction with the Lagos Business School. He's a member Sports Industry Thematic Group, Nigeria, of which belongs to Nigeria Economic Summit Group, of course. A member Sports Writers Association of Nigeria SWAN and International Sports Press Association AIPS. Deji Omotoyinbo believes in the power of sports to change lives and is passionate about the growth and development of people, especially the young. Deji, welcome to the program.
Good to have you here, Dr. Ken. Good to be here. I'm normally on the other side, but it's good to be a guest for once.
Yes. So, how did you see now that you sit on this other side? How do you feel? Is it a bit awkward?
Actually, it's nice. It's for once not being the protagonist. It's good to be able to relax and just answer questions.
Yes. So today we are going to discuss the EPL and the power of money. Because, it's such a big business. People around here, a lot of people know, but to what magnitude it is a business, they don't quite. A lot of people don't know. So today we are going to pay a lot of attention to that. So I start with maybe a very straightforward question. Not that we don't know, but sports, especially football, should it be treated as a deliberate instrument of government policy? I like to come from that angle, because being an economist and then, of course, a man who has spent a lot of his time building brands, I understand what that platform can do for both development and for an engagement. So what is your take on that?
I think it's something that we are not paying particular attention to. I think we have not even scratched the surface. I'm very passionate about the power of sports to change lives. I've seen it, I've experienced it, and I think it's something that as a government, as a people, we should take as a policy. How do I mean? Sports has a way. It was Nelson Mandela that said sports has the power to change lives. it affects you in the way nothing else can. I'm paraphrasing, not the exact words of
the Nelson Mandela.
What sports does, sports comes with a culture of discipline.
Okay.
That you probably don't get in any other sphere of entertainment. How do I mean? If you are a talented singer, talented actor, with all due respect, you need a lot of talent in those spheres. You might not have a lot of discipline, but you can still excel in those spheres. In sports, your talent must be allied with discipline. And in sports, there are some boundaries you can't cross. There's nothing like drugs. There's nothing like, you can't do certain things in this field of sports. And the skill sets that sports gives you, discipline, dedication, respect for the opponent, teamwork, all those skills are life skills that even if you don't make it as as an athlete or a professional sports person, you can apply those skills, all those attributes in any sphere of your life, and it will be a good thing for you. Sports also, healthy living. If you're a sports person, you tend to be healthier. And I feel that as a country, as a people, it's unfortunate that we are a country ravaged by divisive lines, political, religious, ethnic, but the only unifying factor, which we also is sports. And I don't think we are taking enough advantage of that. Let me go to South Africa. Okay. Look at the Springboks. At the time of apartheid, the Springbok jersey was a symbol of oppression because it was mostly an all-white team. And the blacks of South Africa saw it as a symbol of oppression. This all-white rugby team. Nelson Mandela got in there, and Nelson Mandela, when Nelson Mandela became president, they had two events. They had I think it was the 1996 Nations Cup that we didn't go to because of certain issues, political issues, and then I think they hosted the Rugby World Cup in 1990, about that.
Yeah, thereabouts, yeah.
Interestingly, they won those two tournaments, but the Rugby World Cup, Nelson Mandela wearing that jersey to the stadium.
It was a turnaround.
Yes. And now the Springboks, what they've done, they won 2 World Cups, they have a black captain. The Springboks is a symbol of pride and honor to every South African. They're imbibing that. It's something that means a lot to them, is a source of pride, and that's what sports can do. It can give you a lot of identity. It can give you a symbol of pride in your people and in your country. So I just feel that we see sports that Super Eagles are playing, the basketball team are playing. We just see it as that. But we are not exploring the deeper narratives that sports can give us as a country.
Yes, that's the narrative we tend to push on the discourse. Thank you, Deji, for that. And I'm happy you started with that. You have to lay the foundation and illuminate. This thing we call sports. Listen, no boy, it's not a joke. It is a very serious business. So, Deji, Nigeria has many challenges, like chief of which is unemployment and youth redundancy. Can sports, if well tinkered, help to solve this challenge?
Well, I don't think any industry can solve all the problems we have, but it can make a huge impact.
Yes.
In some countries, some states have some countries have what you call a sports trust. What's a sports trust? A sports trust is specially dedicated funds that try to maximize and explore the sporting potentials of a community. How does the sports trust do that? Basic sporting infrastructure. So in an ideal situation, a sports trust makes sure that every child in any community in the country has access to basic sporting facilities. It may not be fantastic, but basic sporting facilities. Maybe, there are their tracks are multi-dimensional. Courts that are multi-dimensional. Volleyball, basketball, tennis, squash, you can do all of that. You can play football, you can have an indoor play where you can play table tennis and all those indoor games. Kids need to have access to basic sports wherever they live. And I think that, if you're a parent, you have teenagers, you have young people living with us, we have a crisis in this country that we are not paying attention to. And it's drugs. And because our young people, full of energy, we are not creating the sporting platforms for them. So when those sporting platforms are not there, they tend to go the other way.
Yeah. And that's what redundancy does.
Exactly. In New York, sometime in the 90s, there was huge crime in the inner city. And what did I think the mayor then did, they created a night basketball competition.
Wow, night.
Basketball. The time that the crime rate was highest, they put a basketball competition right at that time. And the crime rate dropped by 50%.
Wow.
So those are the social dynamics that we can use sports for. If young people in a particular community want to hang out and there's no sporting facility, they will hang out, quote unquote, the other way.
Yeah.
If there's a sporting facility, there are coaches there are people that can take them through learning various sports. The tendency is that we engage in positive pursuits rather than going the other way. Because you must create an outlet for kids.
Yes. For
teenagers, there must be an outlet. If there's no outlet, the tendency is that you lose them to other things that are not so palatable.
The vices,
so I feel that some states have the sports trust. They've not activated. I think Lagos has. I personally wrote the sports trust document for a particular state. They constituted it, but they've not effected it. You've got to create that environment where everybody has a chance to take part in sports. It doesn't have to be football alone, because your child might be talented in cricket. My child might be talented in tennis. Let them have. So once those platforms are created, then there's a pathway for them to, and you can easily combine. I mean, in our time, there are lots of sportsmen who are brilliant academically as well.
Sure.
You can combine the two, and it creates a pathway. I think it's not going to solve all the problems, but at least it will take quite a number of kids off the streets. And we really need to do a lot more in that sphere. I don't think our governments, both states, local and national, at all levels are doing enough in that sphere.
We're discussing the English Premier League and the power of money, but we've used the opportunity to lay the foundation by bringing to you the essence, the importance, and how we can strategically use sports as a platform and engine for development, if you can say. So, Deji, sports has been used. I mean, if you take what is happening in Saudi Arabia, a lot of people who don't understand think they're just throwing money around. No, it's a deliberate
and intentional
tinkering around their foreign policy, around how the country is perceived and how the company is positioned. So today, if you thought Saudi Arabia was such a closed society where you couldn't quite flex, you couldn't do nothing other than just being strict, iron cast. Ronaldo lives today in Saudi Arabia. Henderson lives in Saudi Arabia. The likes of Neymar live in Saudi Arabia. So it's a deliberate instrument for foreign policy development for Saudi Arabia. But can we look at that? Or are we looking at that?
Let me give you an example. You remember in 94, the Super Eagles went to USA and played fairly well, got to the next round. And 2 years later, 96, there was the Atlanta Olympics, where our football team won. I had a friend who lived in Atlanta, and he told me that in those 3 years, in those days, in the 90s, a lot of our sets, a lot of our age mates were traveling abroad. And Nigeria had a very bad reputation in terms of credit card fraud, all kinds of negative things. My friend in Atlanta school, they told me that in those 2 years, what the Nigerian football team did for the image of the Nigerians living in the US,
ego, their confidence.
It doesn't think $100 million foreign policy money would have done it. You've talked about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia are using sports to change the narrative about their country, to change your perception of their country.
The messaging is different.
Exactly. The messaging, the perception is different, and it's working. Whether you want to accept it or not, it's working. A lot of regular people who have felt Saudi Arabia, I won't go there. They're going there. They are hosting boxing events. They are hosting football. They are hosting Formula One. They are hosting golf events. The live golf thing. So it's a deliberate policy using sports to change the perception about their country. If you think Brazil, the first thing you think about is football. I talked about the South Africa and the Springboks. So it's a powerful tool that you can use to define and develop your foreign policy. The Super Eagles are probably our biggest brand, whether we like it or not. And you and I know that anytime you go to a World Cup, and the pride you feel, even when we lose, the pride you feel in the jersey. Look at what happened, I think it was Russia, when we had the best jersey. Like in 94, we had the best supporters club. These are things that change the perception of your country in the eyes of the world. And they'll remember you for other things apart from the negative. Yes, crime goes on a lot in Brazil, the favelas and all of that. But when anybody thinks Brazil now, it's
soccer.
only football.
Yeah, it's the samba.
It's the samba and the football and their teams. And that's a positive perception of the country. So I just feel that with the amount of talent we have, with the amount of opportunities we have, with the amount of achievement we've done in sports, even though it could have been better, I don't think we fulfilled our potential, but we have enough stories to tell to change the narrative of Nigeria as a country using sports.
Let me take you to culture, because I know what culture can do to the individual or a group of people. I know what culture can do to businesses. But can culture, let's take culture now, bring it closer to sports, since we are discussing sports today and the instrument it is. Can we use sports to shape the culture of a nation, for example? Or what is the role of culture, if I put it in another way, what is the role of culture in sporting dynamics?
You know, our culture as a people, if we haven't changed the narrative, our culture as a people, we're very disciplined.
Yes.
Sports creates a culture of discipline. That's what sports does. You cannot be a sportsman without discipline. Those two are poles apart.
Yes.
Discipline and sports are Siamese twins. So bringing sports into the cultural framework means that we have as a people to be disciplined.
Yes.
Do things when we're supposed. As a sportsman, you wake up when you're supposed to wake up. You go to training when you're supposed to go to training. You eat right. You do certain things right. So you conform. So the culture, as a people, we have a culture of discipline, even though people might want to agree, but I mean, those of us growing up, there was this discipline, there was respect.
Yes.
You got to
hierarchy, you know.
You're in a hierarchy, you greet everybody, you are respectful to your opponent in sports, you are respectful to anybody. So it's something I feel that, I mean, those of you in media communications, maybe you need to advise the government. It's something we can use and put into the fabric of our country.
Yes.
We are a disciplined people. Despite what anybody might want to tell you, we are people built on discipline. Our generation, maybe I'm reaching myself. Our generation, you was discipline and respect, and like you said, you respect hierarchy. Even in sports now, you hear things like, a manager needs to put the arm around the shoulder and all that. A manager cannot discipline a player and it becomes like, mental health issues and all of that.
These guys are fragile.
Sports toughens you.
Yes.
And I think we can weave that into the fabric of a nation, because sports create a culture of discipline, and I think we need to get back to a cultural reset where we're a disciplined, very straightforward, very honest people. That's who we are.
Yes.
Anything else is, I think, just a narrative that'll probably come and go, but deep down, who we are disciplined people, and we can see from the past our parents, the kind of lifestyle they lived, living within your means and all of that. These days, that doesn't happen a lot, but I think we can get back to that. And one thing I like about sports is, in sport, as in life, there are no shortcuts to success.
Hard work.
There is no shortcut to success.
You see the output,
if you do not do the work, you are not going to get the results. And I think it's the same thing, even in life. If you think there are shortcuts, if you get some shortcuts, you will still go back to the back of the line eventually. Because there are simply no shortcuts. So sport mirrors life. We can imbibe that to say, in life, to our young people, there are no shortcuts to success. You've got to work hard. It may not be overnight. You might have to work hard, and because at the end of any sporting event, that somebody lifts up that trophy. Behind that trophy lift, probably decades and years of painstaking hard work, sweat, blood, and tears. And that's what we need to imbibe in people too, that success in life is not like that. You might be lucky, you hit a few lucky breaks, but if you don't imbibe the discipline that comes with sports, you will go back to the back of the line.
And the frowns are cheating, isn't it? Because there's consequences with sports.
There are consequences. Because if you cut corners, you will be found out and you would go to the back of the line. If not, you are not thrown out of the line completely.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
Now we are going to the main cocoa, like you guys say on the street of today's conversation. Now, before we go into the EPL, Deji, football as a property, how big is it in your estimation?
It's probably the biggest property in the world outside of North America. North Americans have their own sports, NFL, NHL, the NBA and all of that. And because it's like a continent on its own, you know, but in the rest of the world, football is the biggest sport. It's the biggest property, and it's the sport that gives you the biggest sense of belonging. If your country wins, you know, even when we were winning under 17, you know, the kind of pride that we had. Imagine if you can translate. I remember in 1980, when we won the Nations Cup for the first time, even 73, when I was 10 years old and we won the African Nations Cup, in the gold medal at the All-Africa Games in Lagos, the pride that we felt. Going to 1980, the Segun Odegbami team and what they did, of course, the 94 team, really catapulted Nigeria into a global force, football-wise. So football is a huge, huge sport, and it has great potential. And also, we're talking about platforms before. It gives thousands of kids an opportunity to better their lives. You know, what sports does is that a child that is from the beaten side of the tracks, if he or she is talented in football or any other sport, can dine with kings just by that talent. See, history is replete with stories of people like that who were, if they were not talented, they probably would end up on the streets all their lives. But that talent propels them to greatness and a better life for them, their families, and at times you find one footballer changing the life of a whole community, like Sadio Mane is doing, like Mo Salah is doing, like a few of our Nigerian guys have done. Maybe some of them don't make too much noise about it, but I know a couple of stories of what guys have done locally, and then in basketball as well, in a lot of other sports. So, but in question with football, of course, is the most popular sport, so it has most impact among young people. More young people want to play football than any other sport, and it is a sport that can, like I said, transform a whole lot of lives. And so we need to be intentional. We need to be deliberate about how we go about the process.
So now, I had the temptation of dragging you now straight after that question to the EPL, but let's talk about Nigerian. Is there anything like Nigerian Football League? I don't know. Do we have anything? Because we're talking of importance now. We're talking about how big that property. And I know how much, if we're honest, that can contribute to our GDP. Do we have Nigerian Sports League, and do we have Nigerian brands in terms of football clubs?
They are, because there are great brands in Nigeria.
Okay.
There's Enyimba, there's Shooting Stars, there's Enugu Rangers, there's Bendel Insurance.
Okay, so why do you say they are great brands?
Because they are brands that have history and tradition behind them.
Just history and heritage?
History and heritage.
What of economic power?
That's what I'm saying. The potential is there.
Okay.
We'll get to the EPL, but the EPL decided in 1992 that they wanted to build a global brand.
Yes. It was a deliberate
and intentional move. But they were like global brand that had all the best players from across the world, probably the best coaches, and they had a long-term plan, and they've achieved it. In 1993, when they started, Serie A was the biggest league.
Yes.
AC Milan was probably the biggest team. But they decided that we're going to challenge the status quo. The problem we have, I think, is that we do not like to do long-term. And if you don't do long-term, we talked about not cutting corners, success is the process. You cannot, there's no shortcut to success. I think that's a problem. We do not want to do long-term. That's one. Two, we put square pegs in round holes. A lot of our sports clubs are government-owned. So I think it's a question of just putting, I think, political,
job
for the boys. But look at Sporting Lagos, look at Remo Stars. These are two teams that are owned privately. The impact they've made in 2-3 years is unbelievable. Compared to the Shooting Stars and the Rangers who have been there for so long. But those clubs have history and tradition. EPL is also very successful today because those clubs, yes, they started in 1990, but those clubs had built, some of them had built a century of followership, of history, of tradition, which was sustained. And then they went deliberately to say, we want to be the biggest league in the world. You will see them in the summer. Those trips are not for fun. They are going to China. They are going to this. It's deliberate.
They call it pre-season, but they know what it's doing.
Spreading the brand.
Know what they are connecting to.
Yeah, and you know, the amount of, when the EPL started in 92, the value of their broadcast rights was £340 million total.
340 million pounds
total.
That was in 1992.
93.
Okay.
the last tranche of broadcast rights they sold, 2022 to 2025, domestic rights in England was $6.3 billion.
$6.3 billion.
Domestically. And internationally, it was $6.5 billion.
Okay.
Look at the trajectory of growth. From 340 million, which was about, roughly about $300 million then, to now is 200% growth in 30 years. You know, so I think there's a potential here, but we need to, we like short term. We don't like to do long term. I think there's enough potential, there's enough followers, there's enough interest in our local league if we go long term. I think there's a change now, there's mindset, they're trying to do things the right way and trying to project and do things long term. Luckily, there's been some sponsorship in the league now. A cable company has come in with decent money. So, but you have to keep working. You have to grow it and you have to continue to, even on the pitch, you have to take decisions. When EPL realized that they had become a global brand and footballers are coming from all over the world and it was affecting the growth of their own young players, they come up with a policy. You have a maximum number of foreign players you can have in your team to protect their own young players. So we need to continue to do things like that. The EPL is, I think, is in the top 5 football, the top 5 sports franchises in the world. 4 of them are American. Okay. EPL is the only one that is not American. There's the NBA, there's the NFL, NHL, and I think the Major League Baseball. EPL is the only one. The India Premier League has moved up a lot. But that's the cricket. But Premier League is the only non-American sport in the top 5. It just underlines how they've grown.
They crashed into that.
Yeah. And those other sports are, EPL, you can say, is 20, 30 years old. Those ones have been there since forever. So, we have to be intentional. We have to be deliberate. We have to think long term.
But is the Nigerian Football League the biggest in Africa? Let's even say Black Africa.
No.
So
we have to be realistic.
We have the resources. We have the
Let me tell you my theory.
Yes.
In the 70s, 80s, I used to watch matches, and locally, stadiums used to be packed to the rafters.
Yes, I remember. I watched those matches myself.
When I was in UI, when I was my final year in UI, I was president of the Rotary Club.
Okay.
The president of the Rotary Club was the chairman of the Oyo State FA. And he used to give me 3 state box, engineer Remi Asuni, some people might know him. He used to give me 3 state box tickets. So in the final year in UI, guys used to scramble around me wanting to follow me to watch those matches. And in about that time, there was Juventus United, there was Shooting Stars. So there was a game every weekend. I kid you not, Dr. Ken, Liberty Stadium had a capacity of 40,000, I think for almost 50,000. It was packed to the rafters every game.
Wow.
There was no game. In fact, if you don't get to Liberty Stadium by 12 for a 4 o'clock match, forget it.
You watch outside.
Forget it. You know, but I think what happened was, this is my theory actually, a lot of people might not agree, but I think the USA 94 team was a blessing in disguise. Was a blessing, but was also a breaker. Because at that point in time, we became a global power. The eyes of the football world here just followed those guys. Kanu went to Arsenal. Finidi George then went to Kanu, and Finidi went to Ajax first.
Olise went to
Juventus. Amokachi went there. They were our idols. Our eyes just followed them. And I think, unfortunately, the administration locally just took their eyes off the ball. That's my theory. I'm not saying that's what happened. But
something to look at.
It was something that we kind of now every day, I wanted to know what Kanu did in Arsenal or Ajax. I wanted to know what this did. And they now became global superstars as well. So it's like our eyes followed them and we took our eye off the local ball, quote and unquote. But I feel that there's still enough potential locally if we are ready to put in the work and do it painstakingly, continuously over time. If you give ourselves a 10-year plan for the local league, I think, and we start now, I think in 10 years we can get it back to a very, very decent level in terms of sponsorship and followership and global, or at least African appeal.
What of the administration? How do you rate it?
The administration is poor. We have to. I think the reason for that is government interference. Most of the clubs are government owned, so there's a lot of influence wielding by the owners. You want to sanction a club for doing something, the governor calls somebody, they call somebody, they call, and then
that's it.
Things happen. I mean, we can't run away from the society where we live in.
So importance of officiating is. So let's not even go there. What officiating?
Exactly, officiating. There are issues, there's security, there are all of those things. But I think those things, if we are sincere and we want to address them, like I said, it's not going to be a 2-3 year plan. It's not going to happen in 2-3 years.
But there must be a master plan first.
There must be a plan.
And that master plan must follow a strategy.
And you must follow it to the letter. Yeah. Not that there must be a will to follow it through. Because not that after 2-3 years, some clubs will come and say, no, this thing is too tough for us. And then you loosen the strings. And you've got to follow it to the letter.
Now, the EPL.
Yeah.
You know, we've had one summer window this year, 2023-24 season. Now, I was following that window closely. And I promised myself, I said, okay, when we get to end of November, we are going to have a discussion on the EPL. Just so that I know what happened in the summer and I correlate it. I try to link it with the successes the teams have had so far. So I wanted to know, are you successful because of the amount of money you spent or not? Or is it a dexterity thing, or is it a management or ingenuity of coaches and thereabouts? So what is your assessment of that? Let's talk even about it. Were you impressed about that summer window, or was there anything different from other windows?
Well, the summer window broke a record, broke the £2 billion mark for the first time.
2 billion.
2 billion.
Okay.
The Premier League club spent more than 2 billion
in the summer.
Okay. The previous record, I think, was 1.9 or something.
Yes.
You know, the thing with the Premier League now is that you have to spend to be competitive.
Yes.
Some of the spending may not necessarily be right, may not necessarily be lead you to success, but hey, the best, you've got to spend.
Yeah. You are condemned to.
You are condemned to. You have no choice. Yeah. If you want to buy the best players, 2 or 3 or 4 of you are haggling. Some clubs have fantastic Brighton, fantastic scouting. Yes. They buy cheap, they sell at a premium. But the big clubs can't do that. Yeah. Because they're not supposedly selling clubs.
And you can't wait.
You can't wait.
Yes.
And you know, there's this, a friend of mine calls it the microwave generation. Okay. Like this day, everybody wants it here and now.
Yes.
Nobody wants long term. Chelsea spend a lot of money, but their fans demanding success now. Yes. That success may not come in until around a couple of years.
Don't mention Chelsea.
You know, but look at you say at times you have to wait. Look at Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp's first 2 seasons went exactly. Yeah. Didn't exactly go to plan. Yes. But they stuck with him. Arteta's first 2 seasons didn't exactly go to plan. He's showing signs now that there's a possibility of him delivering on the initial promise. So, but most of the time, you don't find that patience. You don't find enough patience for teams to, or coaches or teams to develop and get to winning ways. Manchester City have resources. But interestingly, in the last 5 years, since 2019, let me say in 2019, next spend in the Premier League, Manchester City are 6th.
6th.
Next spend.
In the last 5 years.
So since 4 years, 2019.
That's 4 years.
The biggest spenders have been Chelsea, followed by Manchester United, then Arsenal. All those 3 have spent in excess of £500 million. Spurs, Newcastle, Man City. The top 5 that I've mentioned, none of them has won the Premier League in the last few years. Yes. The only 2 teams that won the Premier League in the last 5 years have been Man City and Liverpool. Yes. You know, so it doesn't necessarily translate to success.
Yeah, but hang in there, Deji. If I have a 10-year plan, development, and I have a target, I want to win the EPL, and I spend heavily the first 5 years, I don't necessarily now need to spend heavily the next 5 years. That should be a period of Man City
consolidation. But even Man City will spend heavily.
Yeah, but
you know why? Because the best clubs, the best players will cost you a bomb. Yes. There's nothing you can do about that.
Midfielders, 100 million, isn't it?
Exactly. And you know, there are times we would. You know, look, Man City are now trying to be a bit more. They spent a lot. Yes. To be fair, there was a period it was calculated that they have spent over £400 million on defenders alone. You know, but now Jeremy Doku 55 million in the present market doesn't appear crazy. Haaland was bought for 50-something million in the current market. It doesn't appear crazy. But they spend, just like I'm a Man U fan, just like I tell Man U fans, please shut up. In the past, Man U used to be the biggest spenders. Yes. Most expensive teenager were Rooney. Yes. Most expensive defender Rio Ferdinand and all that. So it does look like for you to get the best players, you have no choice but to spend. And we can see what happens even outside England, PSG, Real Madrid. You really have to. The top players come at a premium, and is a seller's market, so to speak. The seller decide, I want this player is 100 million. Just take it or leave it. It may not necessarily be the value, but maybe
it is what it is.
It is what it is, exactly. So, if you want to buy the player, stomp up the money. If you don't, somebody else might come and stomp up the money, and you find issues where player transfers are being gazumped by other teams and all of that. So, to stay competitive, is bottom line, you've got to spend.
Yeah, but okay, I agree with you. By the way, a couple of messages have come. Yinka, I've seen your message, and there's another one by Yinka Johnson from Ilupejo. I've tried to weave in those questions, and Deji have answered them when we talked about the Nigerian Football League as much as we can. But Deji, yes, I know that to spend, you have to be competitive. But it's different. If that being competitive has to be, it must have a strata. You know, you can project to say, I want to win the league in 2 years. You can say, I want to be in top 4 in 2 years. You can say, I want to avoid relegation. So this spend must be weaved around what your ambition is, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So look at Man City. Man City didn't start winning the moment they started spending.
Okay, they laid the foundation.
Took a while.
Yes.
Because football is not. I think what Chelsea are trying to do right now, Chelsea are thinking long term.
Okay.
Because they are buying these youngsters and giving them long term contracts.
Is it part of their culture? Is that not what
I think that's what the American owner is trying to do.
Yeah.
That's why it looks dysfunctional now because, to be fair, all those young players will come in. It might take a while to gel.
They'll be patient.
If they are patient, they have a coach that I think can get the results if given time.
Yeah.
But you know,
will it be there next year?
That's the problem. Will there be the patience
in 11 years?
Will there be the patience to see it through?
Yeah.
That's the point I'm making. That's the point. Even Guardiola, his first season.
Yeah.
You understand? Remember what happened? You know, yeah, exactly. So the thing with football now is that there has to be a balance between realistic expectations and timeline. Do I expect? Is it because I've spent so much this summer? I expect to win?
No.
Immediately, or I'm planning or building for. That's an antithetical situation. You have to find that balance.
Yeah. So
in the Premier League,
that
right
balance requires that you get top managers for the football clubs, or even for footballers administration who understand P&L, understand marketing, understand projections, understand strategy. So you don't necessarily have to be an ex-footballer. If you are an ex-footballer and you understand things, fine. But because I hear a lot of people, they say, you know what, he has played to the highest level, let him be FA chairman. Doesn't that?
No, you know, it's not, it's not automatic.
Okay.
If you have played football, you must add additional skill sets to yourself. Not just because I play football to the highest level, you know, because even the top class coaches that play football to the highest level, they train themselves. They went to coaching schools, they got coaching badges. Some of them took business courses, some of them took master's courses, just to have a broader view of the sport and the business side of it. So, but the thing with the Premier League is that a lot of those clubs, even before the Premier League started in Nigeria, a lot of those clubs had been there for centuries.
Yes.
Had evolved over time, had been successful, had some of them had gone down, you know, like a yo-yo, come up. A club as big as Manchester United was once relegated, you know, before they now came back. Liverpool were the team that were winning in the 70s when we were growing up. Then they had a dip for almost 30 years. They didn't win anything. Chelsea didn't win the Premier League for almost 50 years. So that's the way it is. But they, as businesses, they continue to run and they continue to do well. The first thing people should know that football is, first and foremost, is a business.
Yes.
It is a business.
First and foremost, is
a business.
Yes.
So if the business is set up to succeed, and the footballing side succeeding helps the business side to succeed. But when the footballing side is not succeeding, they put structures in place to make sure that the business still continues to succeed. Match day, Arsenal. I think Arsenal, I can't remember the other team. I think Arsenal and Man U are probably the biggest earners on match day. Arsenal earn about £2 million revenue every match day.
Why is it so? Do you know?
Well, fan base, capacity of the stadium.
Somebody tells me that club you mentioned treats the ball with love and care. So they attract the kind of fans.
The thing is that, like I told you, all these clubs have fan bases. You go to and watch it. For 3-4 years, I was Premier League reporter for High TV. And I used to travel a lot to watch matches almost every month. And you see people from all over the world. You know, that's huge income. Because they come, they buy tickets, they spend, you know, match day. And then, you know, Arsenal were in Highbury. It was a smaller stadium. They moved to a bigger stadium. All was to expand the business base, the income base. Now, they shot from probably third or fourth, no, probably fifth or sixth in the match day ending stakes to the top. Because if you go to the Emirates, fantastic stadium, huge capacity. There's no way you will not spend £5 or £10 when you go there. You buy coffee, you buy
because
snacks.
It's not just football. It's
not just football.
It's
you go to the store, you buy memorabilia, you buy a jersey, you do the stadium tour is there. You know, so. To digress, I was in Spain for the La Liga. They have the La Liga Business School, and we went to Real Madrid, the Real Madrid tour. And the guy told us that the lowest number of people that come in a day to do the tour is 1,000. That's the lowest number, and that tour was £60.
Okay,
so that means they earn basic £60,000 every day from the stadium tour. From the stadium tour.
Wow.
That was Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. So, and a lot of these English clubs is the same. They earn so much money from all other things. So, like I said, it's a business first and foremost, set up to make profit. Winning is important as well, but even when they are not winning, they still want to continue to make profit. It's just that the winning aspect contributes to the commercial success because, of course, the fans will be we're happy to spend a lot more if the club is doing well on the pitch. So it's a natural progression.
Yeah, Deji, I'm happy you mentioned this winning. Let's help some of the fans who are really suffering because they don't understand the real meaning of winning. You see, a lot of Arsenal, Chelsea fans in Nigeria, I am told, you know, and we're still looking at the statistics.
Are you one?
These are renegade Arsenal fans, you know, people who had gone on, they are Protestants. Like
that changed.
Because Arsenal was not winning for some time. Now we have Man City fans, you know, who suddenly popped up from somewhere. And I saw one the other day. I said, listen, why are you a Man City fan? Do you understand what you're following and what you're supporting? He just told me Ebano. I said, what does that mean? He said, this is where we are. So, listen, we have Nottingham Forest fans. We have Sheffield United fans. Aston Villa, if you go there, the 50,000 stadium is full. They stay with their teams from generation to generation.
Yes.
But the Nigerian fan just shifts, you know, whichever is winning. So if you don't understand that culture, then you would suffer.
Yeah,
because it's important to understand the culture. And
we were talking earlier about sports mirroring life.
Yes.
In football, no matter how well your club is run, no matter how much you spend, no one club can dominate all the time.
Yes.
You will have your periods of highs and lows. We're talking about when the Premier League started, AC Milan.
Yes.
The Italian teams were the ones dominating.
It took Liverpool 30 years.
It took, exactly. When I remember, let me tell you a story. In 1977, I was in secondary school. I was in government college, and Liverpool were going to play Manchester United in the final of the FA Cup. Liverpool had won the league, and they were going to play the European Cup. That was the first time an English team had a chance to win the treble. And they were going to play Borussia Mönchengladbach in the final. I was sure they were going to beat Borussia. I knelt down because Liverpool were the dominant team. I knelt down by my bed. I was praying, God, Liverpool have won the league. They're going to win. Please, God, just give us this FA Cup. And eventually, Man U won that FA Cup in 77. And that's how dominant Liverpool were. Nobody wanted to play them. But there came a time, the dip came. Manchester United didn't win anything for 26 years. They came, Ferguson didn't win anything for 5-6 years. Then they started winning, and they're in a dip now. 5-10 years time, we don't know where Man City will be. It's impossible. Just like we say about life, not one person cannot continue to succeed all the time. One club cannot continue to. So football fans need to realize that there's going to be ups and downs. There are going to be periods that you will win, and there are going to be periods you will be and also run.
And that's actually what being a fan is.
That's what being a fan is. You can't be. A lot of these fair weather fans. No. If you say you're a football fan and you cross carpet, you are not a football fan. You are a fan of trophies.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
I can see a couple of messages. By the way, one from Nelson Ahaneko is asking if you still have the opportunity to make inputs like you've done with the development plan. I think Deji is always a resourceful person, and the question you should be asking is, are they listening? But whether he's doing what he's supposed to do, he's doing in the peak time and at the highest level, I can assure you, Nelson. There's another question too from, in fact, it's not a question. He was just saying, he's reinforcing what you said by saying okay, I can't see that message again. Well, he reinforced the fact that yes, the EPL broadcast right actually grew more than 200%, isn't it? Yeah, they just said 200%, but you are saying more than, yeah, we're not dealing with exactitudes, so it's correct. Now, there's a message saying, kudos, Dr. Ken, your guest, Deji, is a resource that Nigeria has not taken advantage of. Of course, I know. I am taking advantage of him today. The man, right from his time at DBN up to now at Sports Vision, has been consistent. You see, Deji spoke about consistency, and he told us that it's always going to be, life is always going to be a journey, not a sprint. Dr. Laja Adeshino is saying that Deji has what it takes to take our sports generally to surpass the level. Of course, we know, and we are going to ensure that begins to happen. Otherwise, we are not going anywhere. We have the likes of Deji. There are a few. Now that all of us are creeping into the 60s, Nigeria better take advantage of us, take advantage of that resource. Otherwise, we will continue to progress in error. Now, Deji Omotoyinbo, when an EPL club gets relegated, what are the football and financial consequences?
Wow. Okay, let me go back to last season.
Yes.
Leeds, Leicester, Southampton, and Southampton earned, I think, £100 million.
Yes.
Leeds earned 103. Yes. I think Leicester earned 106, like that. Mm-hmm. Each of them earned over £100 million just by participating in the Premier League. That's the first loss. Then match day revenue. You know how you would fans coming into your stadium. If you will pull in more fans when Leeds are playing Liverpool than if Leeds are playing Orient in the lower division.
Yes.
So the impact, and that's the reason why you lose about 150, maybe estimate 150, £200 million just by being relegated. And that's why the Premier League pays what you call parachute payments. When clubs get relegated to ease the cushion the effect.
So it doesn't land on the hard surface. Yeah.
They give them maybe about 30 million. They give them some money to cushion the effect because it can be that devastating. Because earning in the Championship and earning in the Premier League pulls apart. So you earn Southampton. I think Southampton came last. Southampton got £100 million by coming last season.
Whoa.
So you can imagine when you now drop. So that's why relegation is such a fair word in the Premier League.
Yeah, and you can see from April how people scramble. Because it's almost like matter of life and death.
Exactly, because financially it can be devastating. And some clubs, Bolton. You remember Bolton? Where are they now? Remember the likes of Portsmouth.
Yes.
If you're not careful, you just continue to drop.
Yes. It's a slippery slope.
Because, it's a very slippery slope, exactly.
Okay, so let me turn it the other way around. What do they lose when traditional clubs who make top four fail to make the Champions League?
Because one, if you are a Champions League team, you attract the best players.
Yes.
Some players would not come to your team if you are not playing Champions League. In fact, it's a benchmark. If you're not playing Champions League, I'm not coming. The additional match day revenue, like Man City earned £80 million additionally from winning $80 million for winning the Champions League last season. There's a lot of additional revenue. But I think majorly is the prestige of playing in the world's biggest club competition. Yes. If you say you're a big club and you're not playing in that competition, and then sponsorship deals, your sponsors might have put a benchmark that you must finish in the top four. Some clauses there. So if you don't finish, you tend to lose, or there's a pullback in terms of sponsor. You have to renegotiate the figures. And so it's a huge, it has few negative financial impacts on clubs, and that's why clubs really, really want to make sure that they qualify. But basically, the most important thing is the fact that as a prestige club, if you're not playing the Champions League, hey, you are looked at like, Thursday night boys are not as respected as Tuesday, Wednesday night boys.
That Thursday night thing can be excruciating.
Exactly.
Especially if you are used to Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Exactly.
There's some message that has come in, Deji. He's saying that how successful is success as far as Guardiola is concerned. His argument is that if Guardiola thinks he's successful, he should take a West Ham and qualify them for the Champions League.
I agree with
Why is he saying? He's saying that Guardiola had coached all the teams who anyway win the league. Barcelona, Bayern Munich, now Man City.
Yeah, I know. There's that argument.
Yes.
There's that argument that he coached Barcelona. I'll hand it to him though. When he took over Barcelona, Barcelona hadn't won for a few years. But there's always that argument that when you talk about himself and Mourinho,
yes,
Jose Mourinho winning the Champions with Porto, is a huge because Porto is a quote-unquote small club in European terms.
It wasn't a flop. So because that was the only time he probably won the Champions League without money.
So there's an argument that Guardiola can only coach clubs where he can buy the quality of players that he wants.
Yes.
The club can afford to buy the quality of players he wants.
Yes.
So, but also you have to agree the fact that you buy the best players doesn't automatically mean that you would win. He struggled in Champions League until he won this last year. So it's not automatic. You still have to get down, tinker, do the job, and all that. But Guardiola, to be fair, he's changed a lot of things in world football tactics-wise.
But in application
pressing, playing from the back, even teams that don't have the quality to play from the back want to play from the back.
It's quite ridiculous.
Exactly. So I agree. It's a very, very valid point that, but it is what it is. That's where he's found himself. He's found himself at that level of coaching, and he coaches clubs where they can afford to, because there was a time I think he bought in Man City one left back didn't work. He bought another one. I told you there was a time he spent over 400 million pounds on defenders alone. So it's a good point, but the fact is, I would say that he's a good coach because even if you have all the best players in the world, you still have to tinker them tactically to succeed.
Yes,
and that's not automatic.
I agree with you. Now I take some messages before we wind down. This is from Shola Lawson. Deji, please talk about how football club brands are valued. Shola Lawson, I think I'm going to invite Deji or maybe yourself to talk about brands, because that is a topic for 2 days in the world.
Exactly. Shola is my friend. If it's the same Shola Lawson, Shola is my friend.
He's my friend too. Okay. And he said today, anyway, let me read it. He said, What's the relationship between winning the EPL and the value of your brand? Of course, very intricate and it's intertwined, and we're going to talk about that. In fact, this is an idea, so I'll pencil down Shola for this conversation.
Exactly.
And he says today, Man U are the most valuable, and yet they are not in contention and haven't been in contention for the.
That's history and tradition.
Yeah, so it's history and tradition.
That's history and tradition.
Yeah. So there's another message from. Who is this? Obasanjo Adedinro. He said, good job you're doing, Dr. Ken. Deji Omotoyinbo is a well-known resource that Nigeria has not utilized. I've said so. I still wonder why Deji has not been named Minister of Sport. I wonder too.
Like you said, Yoruba law.
In fact, I wonder what the criteria in naming, because if we say sports is so critical to our national development, and it can in fact push the numbers up in terms of how much it contributes to our GDP. Why don't we find the best resource? Why are we in wilderness? So this is one of our very best. Quite all right. So can a small team like Leicester win the league again? Well, they can win it maybe once in 100 years. Yes, I agree. Blackburn did that, isn't it? Sometimes, So that will be it will be tough to repeat. It will be tough to repeat. It was such a fluke, when it happened.
But you have to hand it to them. They deserve to win that. And look at what he's done for their brand.
Yes.
Even now that they're in the championship,
we still
a very good brand.
Yes, it can happen. It will take a little time. And why won't it happen? Like I always say, football is like biscuits. You don't know where to crack from.
From the Leicester period, why it's going to be difficult to happen is that a lot of clubs realized that they took their eye off the ball. Yeah. I think that year, Arsenal had a chance. Yes. I think Spurs had a chance to win it. And from that point, I think that's when the grasping of the best players happened.
Yes.
And that's it on The Discourse with Dr. Ken.